Good morning, everybody. This is Attorney Robert Patillo. I am the Executive Director of the Rainbow Coalition Peachtree Street Project here in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's a great conversation we're going to have today on the state of youth activism. We have Dr. John Carlos. Many of you know him from the 1968 Olympics and the iconic photo of him standing with his fist in the air. One of the things we've been pushing is this concept of intergenerational dialogue, making sure that we're working across the lines generationally, so that we're not reinventing the wheel every time we go through one of these areas of social justice reform. This conversation was kind of spurred on earlier this year during the racial reckoning this summer, and seeing T-shirts and social media messaging saying, "I am not my ancestors." I took that as a challenge to educate this generation on how important it is to not simply be our ancestors, but to appreciate them and to take that baton and go forward. So with that, I'll turn over the floor to Dr. John Carlos. Dr. Carlos, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir. I'm really honored to be here. It's been a while since I did any work with the Rainbow Coalition, but it's always good to be involved in their program because they reach so many people, and particularly the fact that they're reaching out to so many young individuals. So I'm honored once again to be here.
Thank you so much. And just because we have, I think some of our panelists range from 17 to 40, so it's a broad swath of younger individuals, and also particularly want to ensure to make sure we highlighted young male leaders who have been left in the wash a little bit by the popular media. Can you tell people kind of your story? What got you into activism? What led to that iconic photo? And your life since then? Because people think that things ended in '68, but there's been a lot of living since then. So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of articulate that to our listeners and viewers.
Well, believe it or not, man, I had an intervention. As a young child, I was 7, 8 years old, and the powers to be in this universe sent me actually a video of myself. I don't know whether you call it a premonition or what, but it showed me actually a video of myself in a field. All I saw was a grass field. I could hear a tremendous amount of people applauding. I'm standing in this grass field on a box, no one there but me, and everyone's applauding, and I felt that, wow, I'm here. It must be something I did. And I went to raise my hand. As a child, when you do something, you want to raise your hand so high, you actually get up on your toes because you want everybody to see you. And just as I went to raise my hand, it's like someone hit a light switch, and all the applause immediately turned to anger and venom. It scared me so much until it stayed with me that whole day, until that evening my father realized that I was traumatized about something. I told him, I said, "Daddy, I was in a movie." He said, "You were in a movie?" I said, "Yes." Now, all this culminated up until 1968 on that victory stand. If you was to look at the portrait on the victory stand, you'll see that I'm calm, but I'm in a deep thought. And the first thing that came to mind was that vision that I had, because actually what happened in that vision was taking place on that victory stand in Mexico City. It let me know then that, first of all, within that vision, it told me, have no fear. I have you in my hands. All my life, I followed that rule. I have no fear for what I think is right. Even down to the point when I was a child, before my father would realize what I was doing or what I was up to, he would whip my butt for things that he thought I was doing wrong. But I never backed away from what my beliefs were relative to my father or anything in society. I have a passion for my people because as a young man in New York, Harlem, on Lenox Avenue, I was born and raised between the two most famous clubs on the planet at that time was the Savoy Ballroom and the Cotton Club. I noticed all the white folks at one point were intermingling with everyone in Harlem, and then all of a sudden they decided that they wanted to move. And I remember asking my dad, I said, "Pop, why are they moving?" He said, "Son, I don't know why they're moving, but I would think that they're moving because they don't like the fact that the domesticated workers, which were us, are moving now to be their next door neighbors." So they decide to flight and leave and go to the suburbs. But yet and still, when they left, they still came back to the Savoy Ballroom. They would be dressed in tuxedos and top hats and pigtails and ponytails and the whole 9 yards. And we would be out in front singing, my Bonnie lies over the ocean, opening the cab doors, helping the ladies out. But then I realized also that we had them in our community that never left. The mom and pop grocery store that we thought black people owned because we were behind the cash register, I would notice that I would see someone white would come out from behind a door where they're looking out to this glass mirror where they could see out, but I couldn't see in, and go to the register and take the money out of the register, maybe leave change for $100 in the register and go back behind the door. And then I'm beginning to see all these things as a young individual, and I began to realize that we had a problem, a significant problem, and it seemed like no one knew how to deal with it. I grew up with this in mind, and I had to have a platform. You have to have a platform and build something so people would listen to you. Well, the platform that God gave me was athletics. I chose to get involved in athletics because I felt the best I could possibly be in athletics, the greater my voice would be. If I got to be a superstar, everyone would listen to me. I began to realize that within that, as much as I trained my body to be perfection, I had to train my mind to be even more perfected in terms of being focused on what my goals were and carrying them through with passion. As you see, for 52 years now, I have the same passions I had back in October 16th, 1968. And I like to employ these young individuals out there today to take those things to account and let them know that this is not in the moment, this is in the movement.
And can you talk a little bit about that movement? Because, we had the entire controversy with LeBron James and other athletes with shut up and dribble. This idea that you're supposed to stay in one lane. Can you kind of talk about that balance, particularly, 50 years ago, between activist and athlete?
Well, you have to realize that before you're an athlete, you're a human being. And no one has the right to take that away from you as being a human being and conducting yourself as such. Yes, I'm an athlete, and I have to make ownership coaches know that, yes, although you're a great coach, although you're a respected owner, you have to give me my same respect and give me my realm in society. If you feel that you've done it all, take into account that, yes, you're the cow that gives the milk, and I appreciate that, but it looks like you disrespect me as an individual that is the grass in order for the cow to give the milk. If there's no grass, there's no cow. So athletes have to take that into account and make them realize they have a responsibility, not just merely on the court to have an even playing field, but have an even playing field dealing with mentorship, coaching, ownership, all of that. Let them know that they have to play a significant part to make a better society, not just merely for you, but all the people that look like you. You have to take into account that as a superstar, you can be in the stadium and win the last touchdown or shoot the last bucket, as I saw Mr. Anthony Davis do in the Lakers championship. But at the same time, when he won that game, hitting that last bucket, based on the color of his skin, he can go from the locker room to his car and merely be killed merely because of the color of his skin. They won't realize who Mr. Davis was until after his demise. So we have to take all this into account and realize that this is substantial racism that's taking place. And only way we're going to wipe it out is to, first of all, wipe out the fears that they've put on us over the generations of time.
Can you talk a little bit about the consequences of 68 and what happened thereafter? Because I think often people see the iconic moments, people see the what goes down in history, but what were the results of that? What happened to your career, to Tommy Smith's career, to discussions to other people who were active in the movement?
Well, I don't know whether they have a big concern about their careers as much as they have a concern about life. And if I step out of line, I might lose my job, I might lose my life. But remember this, you're going to die anyway. And as a young individual, you have to take into account, I don't care if you're 15 years old, if you plant that seed and a baby comes into the world under that seed, your responsibility is secondary to self. Your responsibility is to make it a better life for that child that you brought into the world. So this is something that I've followed all my life in terms of when I was on that victory stand. I wasn't concerned about repercussions based on what I did, because I felt once I set the precedent, you can never take that away. It's done. But for me to have fear that I might lose my life, or have fear that I might be disenfranchised based on my beliefs, then so be it. I remember people used to tell me, say, you know, John, you're going the wrong way. You know, John, you screwed up your life. You'll never work in America again. And I used to tell them, say, well, man, you know, everyone is swimming downhill and I'm swimming uphill. You tell me I'm going the wrong way. But the bottom line is, let's get to the finish line and then we'll see who's going the wrong way. Well, here we are 52 years later, and now I'm on top of the heap relative to what people were saying relative to John Carlos being wiped out or stopped based on my beliefs and my vision.
I want to open this up for more of a discussion format about what we need to be doing, because you're the youngest on the panel, for this next generation to learn from, you know, people like Dr. Carlos and what we can do to move this movement forward.
I wanted to go into this question about education, and it's a perfect segue. We have been recently seeing a lot of Black rappers, Killer Mike, T.I., Ice Cube, Kanye West, so many others that have positioned themselves to speak on behalf of the Black community and uplift these plans. I come from a family of activists and educators, and one of the things that concerns me is the lack of focus on education, with 68% of Black children and youth who are illiterate in this country. And so with your expertise and your experience as an activist, how can we get more Black people who are educated, who have platforms like these rappers and other entertainers, to really drive home the importance of education as far as helping us build a sound economic and political plan for Black people to advance in this country?
Well, remember what I stated earlier, and you brought it in as well. Education is the key. And I stated earlier that, hey, man, there's no one Black this way, one Black that way. Black is Black. And the only way we're going to actually come together is to have the rappers sit down at that round table. To have Ice Cube. I see just like they're talking about what Ice Cube had to say relative to President Trump. And then you sit back, I read today, just before we start the program, what 50 Cent talking about he going to Trump. But at the same time, it has to be some sort of dialogue. They're not sitting at the table to hear what you have to say. They're not sitting here to hear what the brother in D.C. have to say. This is just something that they feel that they have a public medium and they can go out and say what they want to say, and they don't realize until down the line that maybe I got played merely because I had a strong following. If I say something, the following is going to lead towards what I'm saying, opposed to them giving thought to what they're saying or what they're doing. So once again, I would say the best thing is to bring these individuals to the point where you say, let me call Ice Cube out and let Ice Cube know, say, hey, man, we need to have a venue to sit down and talk with you. You need to extend your arm and get a hold of 50 Cent, tell 50 Cent, we need to have a venue where we can all come together and have some dialogue as young individuals to say, hey, this ball is going to be in our court soon. As you sit back and think about all the Black civil rights activists, we falling off the bench every day. And if we fall off the bench and there's no exchange from them to us, where you guys going to be back at ground zero again? Because we still running our own separate ways and we don't have any really unity amongst what we're trying to accomplish.
Shout out to everybody on the Black Power wall behind them. We did not coordinate this before the call. It just so happens everybody has a wall of epic Black figures that they sit in front of. It's good to know that I'm not the only one. But Jason, go ahead.
Not more so of a question, but I think that our role is so important in how our future moves forward. And it was just, an honor for me yesterday to be able to listen to our young people who, quite honestly, for my generation, we do uphold, and there's nothing against, anyone's thoughts, but we do uphold Black entertainers to a different standard. And a lot of people follow what they say and do. And one of the things that gives me courage is that the young people today they see through it. Because we can't send mixed messages. And I think that even the role of Black rappers and the division that we're seeing in our communities is that we can't push messages that disrespect Black women, that uphold criminal activity, that say it's good to be a gangster, drug dealer, hustler, disrespecting Black Muslims, Black Jews, Black anything other than Black male rappers. And we have to be realistic about this, because Tupac even talked about this in his work. And that's why he created books, and that's why he created poetry, and that's why he created other messages to move the people, just like Nipsey Hussle. So I think that it's very important for us as educators, as fathers, as Black males who are pushing the mantle for justice, is that we have a balance of voices at the table. Because if I was a Black woman and I'm sitting up here like we want to just push Black rappers to the front line of being leaders, how do we think that makes them feel? Or Black children that have been disrespected in the lyrics that they put out. So we cannot just ignore the fact that for decades, Black rappers have done this, and the world has taken that and portrayed Black men as thugs and to further criminalize us. So I think that we have to find and strike that balance very quickly, because our young people are losing the faith in us, in this current generation, not the older generation, because our education system doesn't even teach them about you all. We have to do that. So I think we have to change our mindset how we're doing the movement.
Let me add to that too, brother, and say this. Back in the 40s and the 50s, man, there was a local train, made local stops. And your space and time today, man, it's a bullet train. So we was on that local train, we going by, man, and we could see things, we could focus a little bit and try and make some sort of decisions. But now it's going so fast by you until, man, they feeding so much into you until we can't comprehend. At the same time, while it's going that way, we as Black people are so fragmented. We're, just like a glass hitting the ground, we're just shattered everywhere. We don't know who to believe in the Black community. We don't know whether this is true, whether it's true. And that's why I say, man, we all as Black people have to come together, man, to have some dialogue. Have to be rappers, have to be singers, have to be athletes, have to be clergy, have to be educators, has to be all of us sit down and say, hey, what direction are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? Are we just want to be part of the new modern day jet set? Are we just going to buy into social media and have no direction and no purpose? Or are we going to really try and look at where we have come from and where we're trying to go?
Dr. Carlos, this has been an outstanding conversation that we've had. I want to give the last couple minutes to you to close us out with any closing statements, and also tell us how we can follow you on social media, how we can get a copy of the comic book when it comes out, and any other projects you have that you're working on that you need our help with as the up-and-coming generation, so we can work on this intergenerational dialogue.
Well, let me start by saying thank you for mentioning my book again. I have a new page that I just devised. It's called JohnCarlos1968.com. Go to that page. We got everything that you need there. We got a blog. We got everything, all the products that I might be trying to sell. I have a face mask that I created, and I got one with stars and stripes. People say, wow, man, why is that stars and stripes? Because everybody was anti the flag. And I told them, I said, hey, I put this thing up, and my key tag for this face mask is defining the flag. And in my statement, I did something with TMZ, and I said to him, I said, listen, I'll put it on this flag to let them know that, hey, man, we were born to this country against our will. We have a significant history in this country. We built this country. And I'm here to let you know that we're not going to leave the flag. We're not going to leave the country. We're going to be here until America either rise or fall. But we are part of this country, and you can never dictate, tell us go back to Africa or sit down or just go and play. That kind of attitude. No, we're here to stay. Simple as that. My page, once again, John Carlos 1968. Go to the page. Invite your friends to the page. Tell your kids about the page. If you have involved in educators, tell them about the page, because I have some things on there that I will put down just to try and open individuals' minds for them to think for themselves. It's not me. God didn't give me anything special that he didn't give you. Only difference is I'll open the door and walk through it. All I'm asking you to do is the same thing. Open the door of your mind and walk through it. Realize that, hey, once again, as I stated, this is not your life if you have a child. Now it's about your child's life. Everything that you're doing right now is to make it a better life for your child. And the only way we're going to make it a better life for our child is to kill this thing called racism. And before we can kill racism, the biggest factor, we got to kill the fear factor that we have. We have to stop being fearful that I might lose my job. You would found a job, you would look for one when you found that job. Have no fear about your life, because rest assured you're not going to live for eternity anyway. We all going to die. But the question is not about what you did the day you was born. The question is not about what you did the day you died. The question is, what did you do between those 2 days?
Dr. John Carlos, Olympian, legend, activist, icon. I want to thank you so much for joining us.